Hey everybody, welcome to or back to my channel, My Kind of Stuff, and today is my November wrap up. All right, we have a lot of books to talk about here. In November, I read 28 books, which blows my mind. Sounds super crazy to me, but quite a few of them were fairly short. I also read towards the end of the month a bunch of like holiday novellas, so those moved really quickly. But I was just having a really good time reading. The first like week or so of the month started off a little rough because I was doing my TBR takedown video and I was not vibing with most of the books that were picked for that. So it started out rough and then got way better as the month went on. So let's jump into the first book that I read in the month of November, which was Incidents Around the House by Josh Malerman. I gave this one 5 stars. I absolutely ate it up. Basically, the story of a haunted house told from a child's perspective. It's written more like a monologued screenplay almost, from this little girl's perspective. She's super creepy. She is seeing this entity in their house that she calls Other Mommy. And it kind of spirals from there when things start happening to the family and friends. And it it was just so intense and I couldn't put it down. Like I read this entire thing, which it's not the smallest of horror books, in one sitting. Like I didn't want to stop reading it. So highly recommend this one. Now, next up, I have had an ARC copy of Puck and Prejudice on NetGalley for many, many months now, and I keep meaning to get to it. This one was written by Leah Riley. I absolutely loved her other hockey romance series, so when I saw that she was doing a Pride and Prejudice retelling, but like make it hockey and also add time travel, I was like, yes, sign me up. Unfortunately, I only ended up giving that one 3 stars, even though I was so, so excited for it. Uh, I don't know. I think we tried to do way too much in a romance book. Like, did we need it to be Pride and Prejudice and hockey and time travel? And normally her books are really like silly, goofy. There's a lot of like comedic relief. And I think that's what I was expecting going into this. And we didn't really get that. It was a lot more serious, it felt like. And like her little doses of humor sprinkled throughout that were in her other series. I just, I don't know. I was just missing it here. So it kind of missed the boat for me. Overall, it was a cute story. I also feel like the end was kind of a cop out. Um, it's not to say it was badly written or anything like that. It was good. I just, in my mind, it tried to do too many things. Now, I also did an author taste test reading vlog, for Jessie Hall. I started back in October, but 2 of the books I started and finished in the first week of November, which was Greenlight. Um, I devoured this one as well, gave it 5 stars. Um, I talked about it really in depth, in my Jessie Hall author taste test vlog, so I will make sure I link that down below. So I'm not going to go over all the details here, but it's basically a bully stalker stepbrother or step siblings, I guess, romance. It had all the angst. These are like college age step siblings. And just seeing how their worlds were entangled, like their whole lives leading up to this point of them becoming step siblings, um, it's just so weird and crazy, and like they met each other crazy for crazy. Like he would do one unhinged thing, she'd take it a step further. He'd take it a step further than that. And like they just kept going back and forth, just butting heads. And the tension in this was just so much fun. So, yeah, another 5 star, really liked it. And then I also read Hawk by Jesse Hall, which again talked about way more in depth in that vlog. But that one is a woman and her fiance, but he's very like, he has a very religious family. They're also a very wealthy family. She is not. They treat her like crap. And he like invites his friend to come live with them, but never tells her about it. So all of a sudden, some random dude just shows up in her house. And so, of course, she like calls the cops on him, and it's a whole big thing because he just got out of jail. And like, it was just a mess. But of course, she ends up falling for the bad boy. And I loved it so much. He was just such a sweet, kind, loving soul. Finding out like the twist in this one, I mean, it doesn't really come to me as much of a surprise, but like it was just so heart-wrenching. And I just felt so bad for the guy that got out of prison, Hawk, that she ended up with. Um, Gosh, it really almost made me cry a couple times, just feeling so bad for him and how the world treats him for basically a misunderstanding. And then after that, I jumped back into my TBR takedown books. So I read Sallow Bend by Alan Baxter. I gave this one 3 stars. I was expecting a little more. I recently read Blood Covenant by the same author and liked that one quite a bit. It was really intense, it was fast paced, there was a lot going on, where this one was more of like a slow burn, creepy factor. But in this one, we are in a small town, like a rural town called Sallow Bend. There's a carnival in town, and 2 girls end up going missing. So the townspeople and all the carnival employees get together to search for them. Um, but of course, there's like this ancient evil, and things kind of spiral from there. There's like one old crazy guy in town that like remembers the last time this happened and is like trying to warn everyone, and they're like, yeah, whatever, you old kook kind of deal. I I don't know. It was fine. It wasn't terrible. It didn't bring the same level to me that Blood Covenant did, so that's why I gave it 3 stars. Now, in the midst of trying to read the books for my TBR takedown, I also did a 48-hour reading challenge where I tried to beat my TBR game within 48 hours. And I was really hoping to like fit some of my TBR takedown books and things on, but I was at the mercy of the prompts the game gave me. So, of course, I did not. So I ended up having to add a bunch more books to my TBR. The first one was Dating and Dismemberment by A.L. Brody. I gave this one 3 stars as well. It is a monster romance, but I don't know. I didn't really feel the romantic feelings in here. It didn't give me like the heartwarmy kind of vibes that romances tend to. It was still fun. I liked when they went out like hunting together and like seeing them interact, but I just didn't get the warm fuzzies that a romance should bring. It was also really funny. I know like Kimberly Lemming blurbed this, so if you've ever read any of her books, it's got a similar kind of sense of humor to it. But yeah, I don't know. It just, if you tell me you're giving me a romance, then bring the romance, and I just didn't feel it here. Next up, I read Shock Induction by Chuck Palahniuk. This is his brand new book that came out this year, actually just like a month or two ago. Oof, the reflection on that. But in this book, we follow a girl who is still in high school. Her parents are really crappy. They just like get high on NyQuil and kind of don't really take care of her. They treat her like crap. She's really good at singing, so they don't let her take singing lessons anymore. Like anything she wants or likes, they kind of take away from. But she's also very smart. She's working really hard in school to be um, selected to work for this like billionaire organization that is supposed to help young adults be their best selves. But of course, that doesn't go as planned either. And I just love Chuck Palahniuk's books. They really make you think and take a deeper look at society as a whole and people living in it. And yeah, I just love how much they make you think. So I ended up giving this one 4 stars. Um, his books have been a little miss for me lately, like the last couple, but this one I felt like we were headed back in the right direction of like some of his older works, um, like Fight Club and Invisible Monsters, are some of my favorites by him. So yeah, we're on our way back to the Chuck Palahniuk I know and love, so I'm really excited for his next book. I then listened to King of Flesh and Bone by Liv Zander. This one is book 1 of the Pale Court duet. I'm actually going to be reading book 2 in December. It is on my TBR. Um, it's fairly short for a fantasy romance. Like, I think it's just under 300 pages. So the audiobook went really fast for me. I also don't listen to audiobooks on one time speed, so that also makes a difference. But even still, it's pretty short. Um, I've read other books by Liv Zander and they've been hit or miss. Some I really liked, some I thought were really weird. This one landed on the pretty good side. I ended up giving it 4 stars. There's this ruthless, obsessed king, this human woman who accidentally stumbles into his domain and he takes her captive. And it is very spicy. Lots of spice. More spice probably than plot, but basically he wants to control her. She doesn't want to be controlled. Um and lots of spice ensues. And that's about all I'm going to say about that one because again, it is very short, so like going into too much detail I think would ruin the book if anyone else plans on reading it. But I did enjoy it. Next up, I started my cryptids vlog. So I started reading The Jersey Devil by Hunter Shea. I gave this one 3 stars as well. It didn't give cryptid vibes. It gave like almost like bear attack vibes. Like they made the Jersey Devil feel too real, and not like a creature that like is unknown to exist. Like they made it way too prominent. And I think that really took away. We also didn't get much like backstory or lore about the creature. It was more focused on the family. And it was more like high action, old school horror than it was like a cryptid book, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong on what I should be expecting from cryptid books because this seems to be a problem for me with a lot of them is I don't feel like I get enough lore or information about the cryptid. Um, so I don't know. Maybe that's just me and I'm going into these books all wrong, but it's what I want and it's hard to find. So at this point, I decided to hop back into my TBR takedown books because I really needed to get those done because the video is scheduled to go up in a few days. And the last 3 books I had to read for that were some chunky boys. So, first off, we did Crave by Tracy Wolf, again with the reflection. Holy. There. I hold it right here and don't move. Um, it very much is giving I want to be Twilight, but also not really. Um, it yeah, I didn't like it at all. I gave it 2 stars. Um, there was nothing like drastically wrong with it. It just was not for me. Um, I'm gonna give the next book a try. I bought the entire series secondhand, um, on kind of a whim. I didn't know anything about it, and back when I bought it, because I bought it a couple years ago, I was more into YA fantasy romance, and I am very much not now, so I think it's just wrong time for me at this point. So I'm gonna give book 2 a try, but I don't expect much from this series, and honestly, I don't even wanna talk about this book. I just wanna forget that I read it, so moving on. I then did so TBR Takedown, if you haven't watched any of those videos, I will link it down below as well, but read I spin a spinner wheel and it gives me a number 1 through whatever, how many books I have on my physical TBR, and I have to read whatever book it picks. Well, it picked Empire of Storm, but I've been wanting to do a tandem read with Tower of Dawn. So it gave me one chunky book, which immediately meant I had to put another big chunky book on. So I did my tandem read of these two. I will say, if it's your first time reading this series, which it was mine, maybe don't do the tandem read. It really, I think, hindered my enjoyment of the stories. But also, like, I haven't been enjoying this series. I've kind of overall really felt pretty meh about the entire thing. So I wasn't really expecting all that much going in, but I think the flipping back and forth, the trying to keep track and being like, oh crap, I went a chapter too far or whatever. It was just a lot to think about when trying to understand the stories for the first time. So I don't think I recommend a tandem read if it's your first run through of this, but maybe that's just me and my little pea brain can't handle it. I don't know. But Empire of Storms, I ended up giving 3 stars. We follow Aelin and her friends in this one, and then Tower of Dawn, we follow Kale. And I think Kale's journey and recovery and character growth in this one was really good. So that's why this one got 4 stars for me. Honestly, a whole series of just Kale would be better than Aelin. Like, I just simply don't care. She is an awful person. She acts like she's all high and mighty, but really she just treats everyone around her like crap, and I hate her. And that's my 2 cents on it. But I'm glad these 2 giant books are off my physical TBR. I only have one more book to go in this series and it'll be done and I can move on with my life. I'm hoping that it's a while before I have to read the next one, just because 3 YA fantasy romances in a month is just far too much for my brain to process. Especially when, like, it was a series that I knew I wasn't gonna like, and a series that I had a high likelihood of not liking. um, yeah, it was a lot, and by that point, that was, like, all in the first week of November, pretty much, week and a half maybe, that I read all of those books that we've talked about so far, and my brain was, like, just done. So I took a break for a few days and then hopped back in and continued my cryptid reading. So next up, we had A Death in Door County by Annalise Ryan. I gave this one 3 stars as well. It is more murder mystery type of a cryptid book than like a true horror. And our main character, Morgan, she is a cryptozoologist. She runs a bookstore in Door County. Um, there's been a lot of people going missing on the shores of Lake Michigan, and the small town like police chief um, basically enlists her to help figure out what's going on because he thinks that something weird is happening and he's not sure what. He's also a skeptic, but so I don't know why he goes to her anyway. But also she doesn't he hires her on to help as a cryptozoologist, but, like, she doesn't use any of that knowledge in this investigation, um, and she just goes around inserting herself into the things the police should be investigating, and, like, they don't even seem to care. She's, like, going door to door and figuring out, like, who's cheating on who, and, like, it's just weird to me, um so, yeah, I gave it 3 stars. Overall, it was still enjoyable. I liked where the book went at the end, but I just didn't really understand why we hired on this woman. A, when you don't believe in any of the crap, but B, when, like, then she doesn't even do the cryptozoology stuff. Like, it's all other people and her enlisting other people's help and questioning other people. I don't know. It was weird. I also don't really like murder mysteries, so that could have a lot to do with it too. So take my opinion on this with a grain of salt, but it was fine. I then listened to Love and Other Conspiracies by Mallory Marlowe. I gave this one 4 stars. I thought it was really super cute. This one is a romance, but the main characters have a cryptid show in it. So I thought it was fitting for the cryptid vlog, even though it wasn't like truly a cryptid book, it was a romance. But their investigations were really fun. Their banter was amazing because she was a skeptic and he was not. And he was so absolutely like infatuated with her. Um, in, like, such an adorable way. Like, I just absolutely loved it, and I highly recommend that one. I then also listened to Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant. I also gave this one 4 stars. We follow a group of scientists that go out looking for mermaids, and um, things kind of hit the fan. And once they do, this book goes wild. Um, it took a bit to get to that point. Like, I wanna say it was, like, 150-ish pages in or so before, like, we got to the first, like, attack scene, and then from there, it really intensified, so the beginning was a bit slow. I think it could have been a 5-star if the beginning was better paced, and we also, I feel like, got a lot of backstory and things on characters that we just ended up killing off, um I don't know. It just took a bit to get going, but was really enjoyable once it did. I then read a cryptid book for a cryptid that I knew nothing about, but Jenny from Haphazard Book Nook found and recommended me The Squonk and the Horned Beast by Kevin Paul Saliba, I think is how you say it. I don't know. I probably butchered that last name. I ended up giving this one 4 stars as well. Um, Not for the writing per se, because the writing was pretty bad. This is like an this is a book written for adults, but it was written like a book for a 6-year-old. Like, it very much was giving goosebumps, um, and I think that took away a little bit, but I still really liked the story, and here we are following the creatures themselves, so we are getting the squonk's point of view, and we are getting the horned beast's point of view. Um, and just their stories and how they were intermingled and woven and connected, and the way the story was told. We kind of like start in the middle and then like go backwards and then go forwards in time. It was just really interesting. We got a lot of backstory and information on the squonk, which is what I really wanted. Um, Lots of lore, lots of information on how the beasts work, um, and like their family dynamics almost. It was just really interesting. So had the writing been better, this would have been a 5-star book for me. But the writing fell a little flat, so I had to bump it down to a 4 because it just didn't seem fair to give it a 5. Then in the Middle of the month, we had reading sprints for Mayfly by CJ Lead, which is our love and horror book club pick for the month of November. This was one of my most anticipated reads for 2024. Um, I am sorry to report that it was not great. I gave it 2 stars. Had I not been reading it for the book club, I probably would not have finished it. I may have like forced myself through it just to see, but it's definitely kind of like a cross between American Psycho and like Bates Motel kind of vibes. Our female main character, she is like an ice princess at um well, they can't say Disneyland. I forget what they call it in here, but whatever, basically a Disneyland type of place. And she meets her friend's uh brother when he moves into town, and kind of from there it really starts spiraling. She lets her dark thoughts come to fruition, and he kind of like helps her along in that journey. But this just tried doing too many things in such a short book, um, and it didn't do any of them well. There was, however, a cat companion in this book. Really liked the cat. I really liked the grandma in this story. I kind of wish it would have been a book just about the grandma's life, but it wasn't. And yeah, 2 stars. And now at this point in the month, I decided I was going to start decorating for the holidays and getting up my Christmas tree and whatnot. So, Jenny from the Haphazard Book Nook had also told us about this book called Christmas Land by Anne Marie Meyer that was being made this year into an HBO, or not HBO, Hallmark, a Hallmark movie. Um, and I was really excited to read it. It was fairly short, only took a couple hours to listen to the audiobook of this one. I ended up giving it 3 stars. Not a perfect book by any means, but it definitely gives all the warm, fuzzy holiday vibes. And I think it's going to translate to a movie quite well. Um, the movie comes out on the 30th in the afternoon, my time. So I will be watching that along with some other friends over in the Love and Horror Discord. We do movie watch alongs pretty much every week. Um, and then sometimes extra special ones, like this one is off from like our normal rotation of movies, but it's a lot of fun. We really enjoy hanging out, watching a movie together once a week. It's really kind of just fun to relax for, an hour or two and hang out. So the Discord is linked down below in the description. If you want to join us, we would love to have you over there. We also do a monthly book club. So we have all of our book club picks up there, and we're also doing holiday bingo right now through December and January. So I will make sure I link my announcement video down below. But if you want to join that, we have some channels over there for like holiday book and movie recommendations and all kinds of things. You don't necessarily have to read holiday books for the holiday bingo, but 'tis the season. And then I read a book that I've been meaning to get to for a couple months now, and that is Amari and the Despicable Wonders by B.B. Alston. Um, I read the first 2 books in the Amari series and absolutely loved them. They are a middle grade series, but it's oh so good. I think I gave the first book 5 stars. Can't Second book, I can't remember if I gave it 4 or 5. And now this third book, The Despicable Wonders, I gave 4 stars. These are just so much fun, and definitely if you yourself are not into middle grade, if you have any children, I highly recommend. Um, it is a BIPOC author, so that's really great. I feel like there's not a huge amount of those, especially for like the younger kids. So that was really fun. And they're just a very sweet story, and they're very like high action, high adventure. So they really keep you engaged the entire time. I'm really not going to talk a ton about this book because if you haven't read books 1 or 2 yet, everything that happens in this book will spoil books 1 and 2. But just know that I really absolutely love this series. I then decided to go browse my library one day and grabbed Just Like Home by Sarah Gailey. Um, I gave this one 4 stars as well. I really quite enjoyed it. I have been trying to read from the 101 horror books to read before you're murdered. I'm only a few books in so far, so I haven't read very many of them yet. Again with the reflection. Well, anyway. Um, and I've really been enjoying most of the ones I've read. So I'm glad that I got to this one. I'm glad my library had it because this was one that I did not own physically. But here we follow Vera. She gets a call from her mother who is dying, and asks her to come back home to help kind of take care of things. So she does. Her and her mother have been estranged for a long time because when she was younger, her father was a serial killer and ended up getting taken away because of something that she did. So, like, they've been, and her mother was very upset by this. Like, she didn't want the dad to be taken away. So, they've kind of been estranged her entire adult life. So just seeing their interactions was really interesting. There was also a lot of like slow, creepy factors going on. There was also this weird guy, like, living on their property that like was there to paint the murder house. But he was being really fishy and sus and like inserting himself into things that he had no business being inserted into as far as like their family dynamics went. Um, this one was really interesting and I had a lot of fun with it. I then decided to jump into my cowboy romance era with the first 2 books in the Chestnut Springs series. So, first up, I listened to Flawless by Elsie Silver. I gave this one 3 stars. There's nothing wrong with it. It just like wasn't really my favorite. Summer, our female main character, kind of fell a bit flat for me. Um, and she is basically hired to like kind of save face for this professional bull rider golden boy who's kind of like having a rough go of things right now, and she's kind of has to babysit him in a way. um it was just kind of a weird premise. I didn't absolutely love it, but it was still cute. And I mostly read it because for my traveling book pick this month from Maggie's Books and Stuff, her traveling book club, um I needed to read Heartless, which is book 2 in the series. So I know that they're all like an interconnected, standalone kind of series, but I just wanted to read them in order. I ended up liking this one a whole lot more. I gave it 5 stars. We do see Summer from book 1 in this book, and she feels like a totally different character in here. She has a lot more personality. She's a lot more funny. In this book, we follow Willa, who ends up going to nanny for Cade, our male main character, for his 13-year-old son. Seeing her interact with the son was just very cute, very heartwarming. She did such a good job with him, even though she had never had any experience with kids before. But she's best friends with Summer, so Summer kind of like made Cade take her on as help. Um, she is much younger than him, so it's an age gap romance as well. And seeing them fall in love and Cade kind of like having to let his guard down and learn to relax and let someone else help him for once because he kind of took on like their entire family's burden when his mom passed away. And now that his dad is getting older, um, it was just really cute and heartwarming, and I really enjoyed it. then decided to get back into the holiday spirit a little bit, and I listened to My December Darling by Lauren Asher, which is her new Christmas novella this year. It is a small town romance. We follow Catalina and Luke in this one. They both work for a hospital. She's kind of like a traveling nurse, so she jumps around a lot. Luke is friends with like her family, and there's this whole thing where Catalina's sister is marrying her ex. Um, and that, like, when that comes to light, is a whole big thing. There was some stuff with that I was not expecting. Um, Luke really, really likes Catalina, and she's interested, but she also like is afraid to get hurt again. She also travels for work, so she's not trying to get tied down. Um, but Luke knows that she likes Legos, so he gets this like really hard to find Lego set and kind of like keeps inviting her over to work on it, and it's super cute. They also like make cookies together, and it just gave all the holiday romance feels, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. And then my library hold for the audiobook of Trist 6 Venom by Penelope Douglas came in. I have this stunning copy from probably Smut, and they always send tabs and stuff with their books. So I ended up tabbing this one. So I kind of did a tandem read with it. They also sent these beautiful vellum overlays. This is a sapphic romance. It is a high school bully romance as well. So it's very intense. Lots of tension between these two. Also, like a very big class difference between their families. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I really, really enjoyed this. Penelope Douglas's books, for the most part, I've enjoyed, but there was one that was a humongous miss for me that I read recently. So I wasn't sure where I was going to land with this one. Um, but yeah, I ended up really liking it. And then I, from there, just jumped back into the holiday books. I next up listened to Window Shopping by Tessa Bailey, which is her holiday romance novella from a couple years ago. Um, and I never got to it. I think I hadn't like discovered Tessa Bailey at this point yet. But I really enjoy her work. So now been trying to go through her like backlist. This was not at all what I was expecting. Our female main character in here is basically an ex convict. She just got out of prison and is looking for a job as a shop window decorator. That's like what she was going to school for. It's what she has a passion for and loves. Um, this man named Aiden, who runs this really high end shop, ends up giving her a chance and just kind of tries to like help her work through her difficult past. And of course, they end up falling in love. It was pretty cute. Of course, in true Tessa Bailey fashion, there were some very intense, spicy scenes. And honestly, I knew nothing going into this one. So, like, when I found out that she had just gotten out of prison, I was like, what on earth? It kind of shocked me. I should probably have read the synopsis. But it ended up working. I think I gave this one 3 stars. It was fine. There was nothing like super wrong with it. I've just read a couple holiday romance books that like have some sort of weird, shocking female main character, and it kind of takes away from it for me a bit. Like, we didn't need her to have this like shocking, tragic backstory. She just could have been anyone down on their luck looking for a job. Um, so that part kind of like took away a little bit for me, and that's why it ended up getting 3 stars. I then read The Visitor by Sergio Gomez, which is a holiday horror novella. This one is about aliens, and I gave it 3 stars as well. I think it was just too short, and it packed a lot into those pages where it felt very rushed to me. Um, but it had me on the edge of my seat the whole time. I didn't want to stop reading it. So it's not to say that it was bad. but it had the usual novella syndrome, in my opinion, where there was too much happening in too short of a time, where the pacing felt wrong, which is an issue that I have with quite a few novellas. So, 3 stars is a pretty high rating for me, um, or like average rating, I guess, more so for a novella for me. They really have to do something special for me to give them a 4, and I don't think I've ever given one a 5 star. I then also read Candy Cane Kills by Brian McCulley. I gave this one 4 stars, and it is a novella. I really like this. It gave all the slasher vibes, all of the goofiness that I like in more modern slashers, where it's silly, they don't take themselves too serious. All of the kill scenes have some sort of like weird, corny Christmas element to it, whether it be like an ornament or a candy cane or this or that. Like, it was just very fun and kind of goofy, and I really enjoyed it. And I know that there is a Candy Cane Kills again, so like a book 2 in the series. And now I really want to read that one as well. So I think I'm going to try to squeeze that one in December. And the very last book that we have to talk about today is Trick Shot by Kayla Gross. I ended up giving this one 4 stars as well. It was another it was a novella, but it was a little bit longer one. I think it was like 250-ish pages. Um, this was just all spice. Like, there's next to no plot. I probably would have gotten 5 stars had the male main characters, because it is a why choose. It's one girl, 2 guys. Um, had the male main characters not been kind of like lying to her, because one of the guys has a famous hockey player for a twin. So the entire time she thinks that she's sleeping with the hockey player, and she's really sleeping with his twin brother. And of course, they do like bring it to the table that like this is who they are, but it's after like they've already spent their time together. So it was a little crappy of them, I think, to do that. They definitely should have told her before they did stuff. But whatever. She ended up getting over it, and they lived happily ever after, as one does in a Christmas romance. So that one ended up still being cute. I did enjoy it, but don't go into it expecting a lot of plot. It is mostly just bedroom scenes. So those were the 28 books that I read in November. I'm so excited to get into December. I have so many more holiday books lined up, romance and horror, which the Christmas horrors have really been working for me. I've really been enjoying them, so I'm excited to read some more, because I've read a lot of holiday romance books, but I have not read a lot of holiday horror. So I'm excited to dabble into that more this year. Let me know down in the comments below if you've ever read any of these books and what you thought about them, and also what holiday romances you have on your radar, or if you have any holiday horror recommendations. I am here for them. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and give the video a thumbs up on your way out, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye!